Good afternoon, everybody. So great to see so many of you on this call today. Thank you so much for joining us for the Sustainable Community Discussion. It's a really exciting event, and we're happy to see so many people participating. My name is Petey Stefanik, and I'm with Southwest Michigan First. And this series of discussions is really designed to build our sustainable community and to strengthen and grow support for our efforts in the region. We invite you and your company to join in this initiative and to make our community a leader in sustainability. Before we jump into the content for today, a few reminders. You've already heard that today we'll be recording this session and we will be sharing it with everybody who's registered. So you can take notes or you can wait to see the recording if you prefer. Also, we're going to go ahead and use the chat box with so many people on the call today. So please, if you would go ahead and change and add your company to your name on your identifying tile, just so that if you do have comments or questions, we can get back to you knowing that information will really be helpful. So please go ahead and do that. So I'd like to go ahead and introduce our format today and our speakers. So today we will be hearing from Brenden Molony with Bronson, Libby Rice with DART, Jamie McCarthy with the City of Kalamazoo, Jeff with Jeff K. I'm going to go with that till I hear how he says his name, with Eagle. And then Ellie Leist with Pactive Evergreen, also formerly known as Fabrical. So each presenter, the format today, each presenter will go ahead and share their insights and some information about recycling styrofoam and some initiatives that we have on the docket that we'd love to talk about. After we have those presentations, we will have some Q&A and some discussion that will be led by Allie. And that will help us really kind of direct this conversation and where we're going to take this initiative next. I mentioned the follow-up email. Tomorrow, there'll be an email that you'll receive that will have a survey in it that will ask for your participation and your thoughts on this initiative and other ideas. So please stay with us to the end, and we're very excited to get started. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor to our first speaker, Brenden Molony.
Thank you, Petey, and good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate you being here to hear this presentation. So I'm going to share my screen real quick to everyone. And so can everyone see the presentation? Petey, thumbs up. Okay, perfect. This conversation kind of came out of, Bronson's foam recycling program. So we've been doing this for a little while now. And to give a little context, this program mainly happens at our Bronson Methodist Hospital. It's located in Kalamazoo, Michigan, 434-bed hospital, 800 plus medical staff, 2,180 discharges. It's our largest hospital out of our 4 hospitals. And we have, a lot of care and a lot of things happen in this building, including our medical office pavilion and things like that. It is also a level 1 trauma center. So if there's a trauma event, usually it comes to this location within the Kalamazoo area. And it all kind of started around 2010. We actually had switched to a compostable cup a little bit before that. And that cup and those items were leaking. It was well before the items that are compostable items now, but it wasn't a good product, and because of that, we had to find an alternative. And so we ended up switching back to a styrofoam cup or a foam cup. And when we made that switch, there was a big outreach and a big cry for a recycling program. And so we ended up partnering with DART with their CARES program, and we installed a densifier in the hospital. And as you can kind of see in this picture, that was the original, that's the area that the densifier is today. And those are kind of that's the densified styrofoam. So all those bags of bagged up densified styrofoam is what it comes out at. So you put in, I forget the amount of cups that you put in the machine, and it comes out in around 50-pound brick. And it's a good program, especially for cups. So on our units, still to this day, we use these foam cups, and they're recycled down at this machine and then taken back to DART to be turned into other items. So, and if you can see my screen, these little pellets are actually what the styrofoam gets melted down into and then turned into different items. And I even have a DART pen here that is 50% recycled foam from, who knows, maybe our styrofoam at the hospital. So it's been a good program, and it's been, you know, over the years we've adapted it. But what we're seeing now and in the present day is a lot more of these styrofoam or foam coolers and packaging from a TV or, you know, a specimen or certain things that come into the hospital. We're just seeing a lot more of these coolers. You know, they can be as large as the window behind me or something like that. They can be very large, and we cannot densify them in this current densifier. You know, it's built for cups. And so, like other people, you know, we're seeing these items come through. And another good example is all of the vaccines come in these containers as well. So like the cooler right here, your vaccine could come in that cooler. And so with these influx of materials, we are still sending them back to DART, but we're unable to densify them. And because of that, you know, it's a lot of material, it's a lot of space taken up on our loading dock and things like that. And it's difficult for us to manage as an organization. And so what kind of sparked this conversation is I was asking Libby from DART, who will be speaking next, you know, what alternatives, what can we do to get rid of some of these items or densify these items? One way is using a hot knife and cutting them down and kind of then densifying them. And it can be a hazardous operation for our staff managing the densifier, and it can also, you know, be a semi-safety hazard if it's not a well-ventilated space. And so Libby suggested reaching out to Foam Cycle, and so there's a bunch of different densifiers out there, and this one Libby from DART suggested reaching out, and they mainly focus on these large items. You know, it's a container that's a self-contained container that they built with the ventilation right in it, and then as well as collection areas for around the community. And they're really seeing a lot of use in community-based activities. And so when this solution was kind of brought to me of, you know, this could work for our need as a hospital, you know, what is there something like this that could work for the bigger Kalamazoo community? And previously I had experience working with Bell's on their Super Sack program that I believe we're going to highlight later, where it's a collection of breweries and other businesses getting together to recycle those items. And you know, as a hospital and as a healthcare provider in our community, we would love to do nothing more than support the community by accepting a difficult item. And Jamie from the city is going to kind of talk about around their current program. But this would kind of also allow us to, as a community, to do something a little bit different. So I just wanted to give some examples, and I have some in my office as well, of what this product is actually turned into. So, you know, with recycling, I've always thought, you know, it goes somewhere, it gets recycled, it gets turned into something, but really what is the end product? So on the screen, you can see, you know, there's a really nice wall that is created from this product. The actual pallet in the middle is what the foam looks like after running through the system. So it's actually a hot densifier. And then the picture frame is probably the biggest use, where it's 100% recyclable. If the picture frame breaks, it can turn right back into a picture frame. And I have actually a few examples in the office. So this is kind of what, if you can see on my screen, what a piece of that densifier foam looks like, as well as another example of a piece of crown molding. So say if you wanted a piece of crown molding that wouldn't shrink in your house versus a wood product, you know, this is 100% recycled and recyclable product. So there are a lot of good uses for it if it's recycled. And so since we do recycle it at the hospital, I want to see how we can encourage others to do the same and get more of this item that's really considered, a difficult to recycle item out of the landfills. So that's the main part of why I wanted to have this conversation, and kind of what as a business we're dealing with as a hospital. It's definitely I don't believe we're the only one dealing with this issue, and I really think that as a community we can kind of band together and come up with some solutions that work for everyone. So now I'll pass it on to Libby from DART, and she'll kind of give you a little bit more of a background on our partnership, as well as as a Michigan-based company, on how they support recycling of these foam products. So.
Thank you, Brenden. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So first of all, thank you for the invitation to be part of this conversation. I think those of you on the call who know me know that I could talk about foam all day, every day, and I do get excited, and thank you for the visual aids and the walk down memory lane. Bronson is truly a poster child for a program like the DART Care program. They already had the culture, they had the desire, they had the infrastructure. So really, it was probably the most seamless adoption of any program we've put in anywhere. So they had all the pieces already in place for this to be successful. So I'm super proud to be part of that. So for those of you who are not familiar with DART, we are a Mason, Michigan-based family-owned company. We are a manufacturer of single-use products. Our company was actually built on foam cups. The 6-ounce foam cup was our first product, but now, we also manufacture products with many different materials: polypropylene, PET, paper, bagasse, sugarcane, just to name a few. If none of those products ring a bell with anyone, then maybe the red Solo Party Cup might jog your memory. We are the proud owner of that product now, since we purchased Solo Cup Company in 2012. And that, talking about recycling any of our materials is very, very interesting to me in general, but foam specifically, I think, gets such a bad rap all the time that I think that's why I am so passionate about it, because I always have said, if you knew what I knew, it wouldn't be that big of a deal to include this in your, whether it's your program, in your product mix, within your establishment, if you're a food service operator. So I kind of want to focus a little bit on what it is we're actually talking about when we say foam or EPS, expanded polystyrene. We're not talking about styrofoam, because that is the Dow chemical trade name for building insulation. So think that pink or blue board sheet insulation. Ironically, you can't recycle that because of the fire retardant in it. So we are focused on cups, takeout trays, egg cartons, meat trays, as Brenden had mentioned, the foam coolers, the bulk rigid packaging. So that big bulky foam material that is 95+% air, which makes it a bear to transport because it's super bulky. So DART has recycled this product for more than 30 years. This is not necessarily anything new to who we are. The DART family has always been committed to the recovery aspect of our products, and foam recycling was something we've always done. We have over 100 partner communities, half of which are in Michigan, that we have drop-off site, collection areas for residents. We service those at no cost. The only stipulation is they need to accept food service packaging, so the foam trays, the cups. But we are realizing that as time moves on, the majority of the material we collect doesn't even include our product. So we are finding ourselves to be the primary recycler in Michigan for foam coolers and bulk packaging. And just to remind everyone, we are still a manufacturer. We're not a recycler. We don't have a trucking fleet dedicated to recycling. Our trucks, our drivers, the priority for them is servicing our customers. So the Cisco's, Gordon Food Service, our distribution partners. So when we do have recycling routes, it is secondary to our primary business. So I'm sure you can appreciate that. We believe as a company in expanded polystyrene for insulation, for the value it brings. It works amazingly well for every application it was designed for. So we want to keep that as a viable choice for people. So we're aware of the challenges in recovery. As Brenden said, it is not a widely recycled item. Recycling is just as much an emotional decision as it is an economic decision. So how do we take both of those sentiments and forge forward with some sort of recovery that will work? We do have a recycling facility that we operate in Indianapolis. It's called Omni, and this is dedicated to EPS, polystyrene recycling. So our Red Solo Party Cup program that we work with TerraCycle on, those come right back to our facility. So we do the rigid polystyrene. We also do the foam. This supports curbside recycling programs in the US and in Canada. So we're trying very hard to be a viable market for them. And what we do, the little pellets that Brenden showed you, it's processed and it is sold. And I use that term loosely, lightly. It is sold to manufacturers who can use that material in a variety of products, whether it's the picture frames like Foam Cycle is doing, any sort of office supply, benches and all that kind of thing, hangers. So we're trying very much to connect the two. To make any program work, really, you need to have a stakeholder group that wants it. A culture of change and acceptance is key to any successful adoption. Bronson, as I said, had that culture setting it up. So when we're thinking of what the future of these programs could look like, I have to quickly just tell the story. The Bronson project started because the nurses have to change out patient cups every shift, every 4 to 8 hours, let's say. And the amount of cups they were throwing away really started bothering them. So they demanded a solution. So Bronson was not only pivotal in getting this set up in demand to their own internal stakeholder group, they were the first medical facility to be able to recycle their cups from patient care floors. So, DART had a policy of not accepting anything that would be considered hazmat, which it could be. You have no idea if it's infectious or anything like that. So they really did. Lisa Hardesty at the time with Bronson pushed it through, and they were a trailblazer in foam recycling in healthcare. So it's definitely the brief overview of the program, but they had a goal and they believed in it and they didn't stop until. I cannot overstate that partnership and collaboration are critical. Bans are not the answer. Innovation and partnership are. We fund a grant program through Food Service Packaging Institute called the Foam Recycling Coalition. So if there are any cities, municipalities, organizations that need help funding a foam recycling program, there's grant money available. It can help you get a baler, a densifier. It can help you work with a company like Foam Cycle. It can help you with education costs, anything like that. There are monies available, and I'm happy to share that after the presentation. Michigan has a very motivated recycling community right now. As a board member on the MRC, the Michigan Recycling Coalition, it's definitely eye-opening to see the recovery efforts that are stirring behind the scenes. And, as a collective, we need to mobilize the waste haulers, the citizens, the businesses, recyclers, the governments, everybody. And much like the nurses at Bronson, every single stakeholder is key to success. So my parting question is, what can you or your organization bring to this recycling question? Is it a volunteer army? Is it financial investment? Is it a site? Are you ready to be a cheerleader and an advocate? Every one of us plays a role in expanding this foam recycling goal or hope. So you all, each and every one, are a very important piece of this. So I look forward to hearing the rest of the presentation and moving on to the Q&A later. Jamie, I think you would be up next.
Thanks, Libby, and thanks for that presentation. I'm just going to briefly talk about a program that City of Kalamazoo and lots of volunteers and our Environmental Concerns Committee helped pilot earlier this year. But before that, I wanted to just briefly talk about our sort of curbside recycling program in general and kind of where we've gone and where we've been and where we're going. The city has an existing solid waste millage, and that helps provide our biweekly single stream recycling pickup that is available to all residents in the city. And several years ago, we launched our single stream program for the first time, and we partnered with Recycle Coach to launch a public education campaign, and we had some grant dollars from DEQ, now Eagle at the time, to do that. And over the years, I mean, certainly through that process and over the years, we've heard from residents saying that they'd really like more materials accepted by our curbside recycling program, including polystyrene and foam products. And to date, that just hasn't really been an option for our existing recycling vendors. So in 2022, our city's Environmental Concerns Committee, that's a volunteer citizen board, helped to facilitate some meetings. They met with community stakeholders. We had Hope for Creation was one of the leading groups in our city who really wanted to talk about and tackle this issue. And then we also had the opportunity to learn from Cooper Township and some of their partnerships and volunteers to help us brainstorm what a model in Kalamazoo would look like. And what came out of that meeting was it's a very volunteer-led pilot program supported by the city to collect the EPS foam. And we do that in partnership with DART. So we're very grateful for the agreement that we have and the services that they provide at no cost. And it's a quarterly program. It started in April of 2020. And at the program here, residents have this opportunity quarterly to drop off clean foam materials in clear plastic bags. And I wanted to show, I'm going to share my screen here for a second and just show you a photo of our trailer and the location where folks get to drop off, just because I think that the trailer is a lovely idea that came together with the help of Sharon Deaver in our Environmental Concerns Committee and some a little bit of money from the city and a local artist. So what folks can do is they come quarterly, as I mentioned, to drop off at our trailer here. It's stationed at Mayor's Riverfront Park. We keep the semi-trailer here as our staging area. We didn't have like an indoor warehouse type space that was open as often as we needed. So we ended up getting this trailer donated, and you can see the mural on there. And during the quarterly events, they are staffed. So we need to have volunteers there that are helping to intake materials, making sure that they're acceptable, and then putting them into the trailer. Before then, DART will come and pick them up. And when we were designing the program, we just weren't sure, you know, how long would it take to fill up this trailer? It may sit there for quite some time. And what we've found so far with the 3 events is that each time we've had the community collection event, the trailer's been, you know, filled up. So then DART can come and take those materials from us. And so, you know, roughly, I think we're collecting somewhere around 200 cubic yards of material at each event. And we have our last event coming up next quarter for us will be end of January of 2022. So the takeaway for us at the city is that there's definitely interest from the community and there's demand for this type of service. We are really grateful to our volunteers because they help run this, and our Parks Department staff have really helped organize and run each of the events. So we couldn't do it without them. And we are looking at, how we continue this in 2022, because we feel it has been just a really successful program for the community. And I would say for today, we're really interested in hearing from the business community and others in our community, thinking about ways that we might be able to partner or, leverage this residential pilot that we've started, maybe with other communities that are doing similar things, just trying to create more opportunity in Kalamazoo. And that's all I've got.
Well, it looks like I'm up. I'm Jeff Kirchmerich. I'm going to share my screen here. I know I sent you some slides, Petey, but I think I can get my slides up and running. There we go. No, wrong one. Sorry. Anyway, my name is Jeff Kirchmerich. I'm the recycling specialist for the west side of the state, and I've been working out of the Kalamazoo office for quite a while and working with local communities and processors and haulers for materials just to increase the amount of materials that we need to recycle in Michigan. And we have a grants program through the state of Michigan through Eagle. We've been appropriated approximately $15 million. And we have used that money around the state to create networks and hubs for recycling, to help fund MRFs, to help provide compactors for businesses and some nonprofits and the public sector. So we have a lot of opportunities here to help work with this group to help move the polystyrene out of the waste stream. I think my cat wants to help me. So anyway, thank you. So our goals are to increase access and participation for the folks. We want to inform residents on where they can recycle. We want to make it equitable and inclusive so that we are expanding to diverse communities. We want to provide training. We're coming up with a training program that should be released in 2022 for recycling professionals. And recycling professionals means everybody from the volunteers to the local government officials to the processors to everybody in the recycling business. And we want to improve the quality. And we did some hyper local marketing in the Kalamazoo area with good marketing with the recycling raccoons. I don't know if you noticed, but those are the types of efforts that we will put forth to help promote any type of recycling activities in your community. So I think we also have something going on in Battle Creek recently too. And we also want to grow the markets. We want to make sure that we have a closed loop. We want to make sure that these materials that we collect through our programming gets shared with local processors to make sure that we're not traveling around dependent on foreign or far away commodities to produce materials and widgets here in Michigan. And we want to expand the infrastructure because we have a lot of gaps. We have some rural communities that don't have the access. We have some needs for carts, for drop-off locations. And styrofoam is one of those things that's just kind of hard because of the lightweight, and it's hard to educate people exactly on what you can take and what you can't take in terms of the type of foam. And also with the advent of COVID, a lot more shipping has occurred with the increased amount of foam that we've been seeing and the pent-up demand for finding some way to deal with it. We also like to see partnerships. We have I think it was mentioned, the Foam Recycling Institute. We have the Recycling Partnership. There's other groups, organizations out there that will help with communities and organizations to overcome those hurdles. And lastly, one of the things that's on the governor's needs is to decarbonize. So we want to reduce our carbon footprint. And that's one of the things that we look at when we look at grant applications is like, what's the environmental benefit in terms of decarbonization through your activities that we're going to be granting monies for. One of the initiatives that we have that we're using our funding for is for Next Cycle Michigan. And this is a program that has 6 different tracks. One is to look at organics, one's to look at materials for roads, one's for innovation, others are for partnerships, and then we have a micros grant. And the micros grant is a you don't have to provide any match, but through Next Cycle, we could provide up to $10,000 in funding to help come up with a feasibility study. So for folks in Southwest Michigan want to create a spoken hub, we can help identify through a micros grant the players that we'd want to have involved and kind of develop a network perhaps of like how we're going to be able to pull this off and what it's going to cost and what kind of commitment we need from all the partners that would be a part of that program. So that's an exciting way we can help. This is a intergovernmental initiatives and public-private partnerships. And this also, when I heard about this project, I thought of this track in Next Cycle. It'll provide assistance to help also develop. And each of these different tracks have deadlines for filing to participate. And the I2P3, we call it, track has a deadline of January 7th. So at the end of my presentation, I'm going to give you a location to go to so that you'll be able to click on and find more information of exactly what, how to apply for these partnerships and grants. So, but one of the things is we really know that it's not government that can do it. It's the private sector needs our help and we have to work together. And that's what the purpose of this initiative is to working together to get that job done. So, and to have a successful public-private partnership, you need at least 4 out of these 6 items here to make sure that you can run something successfully. You need the policies, you need the end markets, which we have here. It's DART. Processing, which we have through DART. Collection is an issue that we'd have to overcome and determine how that would occur and how we'd provide the shipping. And then the education, and the state of Michigan through EAGLE can help provide that educational funding to help educate citizens on what the best practices are for post-consumer expanded polystyrene. And as I mentioned, there is a website that you should go to. It's listed down here, and that we have all of our social networking, and one of them is the link to grant release. When we release an RFP, request for proposal for grant applications, that's where you would go to find what is coming up and all the specifics regarding those grant opportunities. So it's really important to stay in the loop. Like I mentioned, the next deadline for a grant application for the partnership program, the public-private partnership program, is January 7th. All the other ones are infrastructure grants where we provide capital improvement monies. The micros grant for those feasibility studies, that'll be occurring mid next year. We just closed out those grant cycles recently. So we need to stay in the loop and find when these opportunities occur. And if you have any questions, please give me a call. I provided my contact information at the beginning. If I'm not the person that can answer your question, I can find out who can. But please, we'd like to get these things fleshed out prior to the application so that before you send in your application for any grant monies, we want to know exactly if you have any gaps in your application and how we can help plug in those gaps to make your application look really good. So with that, I'll turn it over to Allie.
All right, thanks everybody. And a big thank you to our speakers. This is really great stuff, and collection is always one of the toughest parts of recycling. So I'm excited to get a discussion going around it. To begin, we're going to do a live polling with 2 questions to just gauge and understand if you currently use expanded polystyrene in your operations and how you can help.
Those polls are coming up in just a second, Allie. I've got Kelsey McKeag is going to be pulling those up for us.
The poll is live, so everybody should see it on their screen.
Awesome, thank you.
Kelsey, we're not seeing that.
I have 7 of 42 people responded, so it should be on people's screens. Let me real quick relaunch the poll. So if you've already voted, you may have to vote again. Hold on 1 second. All right, can everybody see that on their screen? I'm getting votes coming in. All right, it looks like it worked better this time. So if everybody can vote, give it another few seconds. It looks like we only have 14 responses. So I'm going to share the results, but then I'm going to post the questions in the chat box for everybody to answer in the chat box if you don't see the poll. Hold on 1 second.
You go ahead and start the poll, and I'll just hop in here just for a minute, Allie. In the chat box, you can see the poll questions. Number 1, let's do the number 1 question first. So does your company use EPS, expanded polystyrene, yes or no? So let's take a minute. If you'll just put in A for yes and B for no, that will help us, and we'll be able to kind of then gauge those responses. I'll give you a few minutes to do that.
And toward on the bottom of your screen, there is a reactions button. And so if you did respond yes to using expanded polystyrene, could you please give me a thumbs up?
Shall we go to question 2? Allie, do you want to do that one?
Sure, yeah. Well, real quick before we dive into question 2, of those who are currently using expanded polystyrene, and feel free to jump on, take yourself off mute and jump on. What are you currently using it for, and do you currently recycle that? All right, so maybe we'll come back to that one later. Jim, did I see you start to come off mute?
Yeah, I was fighting with my mute button there, Ellie.
Okay.
No, I was just gonna say that ours is on purchase goods, so whether we're receiving stuff for the lab, but it's pretty routine that we get material in, and currently we do not recycle that.
Okay.
It goes into our landfill container. So
this is Larry West from Perceptive Controls. We, like Jim, we get styrene materials with our panel shipments. We do recycle because typically when we send those panels back out to our customer, we'll repackage with the styrene ourselves.
That's great.
Yeah, this is David Stryker. We do use polystyrene for a lot of inner packing for some of our capital items, and we do not currently recycle.
Okay.
Yeah, I concur with what Dave said. At Stryker as well. We'll use it for higher value electronics items and things like that. So trying to do our best to minimize that.
Awesome. Well, thanks for jumping on. now we'll go into the second question. So what resources could you or your organization commit to a collaborative effort to establish expanded polystyrene recycling in the Kalamazoo area? And feel free to jump on as well there. So, because I can't, PD, unless, are you able to quantify all of the chats just to see?
I can add them up while we're doing this. I'll see if I can
Okay.
go ahead and make that happen while you're asking this next question.
Okay.
But why don't you go ahead and get started on the next one, and I'll start from the bottom.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, so we'll come back to that question then. And we'll just jump into some questions that I have. So often, and this is an open question to all of the speakers. So often expanded polystyrene products have, let's say, like a paper label on it, or maybe some packing tape stuck to it. What level of contamination can this program accept?
I'll go ahead and speak for what I know. Not that we're a recycler at large, but some contamination is, I'll say, okay, understandable, but we do ask for labels and tape to be removed. So I know some of, my family gets medication in a foam cooler via UPS. And so I spend time taking off all of the labels, the security labels, the tape, the shipping labels, all of the things. So in any recycling situation, the less contaminants, the better it is. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but there is some effort that should be put into delabeling and taping it all.
Sure. Thanks, Libby. What about for like food containers? So food service packaging often is associated with food waste. So would we encourage folks to properly like rinse them? Or are we going to even accept like a to-go container that might have like some cheese left over?
So, right. Recycling is still trash and still managing the waste stream. So there is a certain level of expectation that there's some contaminants on there from food. The cleaner, the better. In Bronson's case, it doesn't have to be rinsed and washed. You can see on the machine, if you ever want a deeper dive into their program, I'm happy to send you some photos of what happens when you don't take all of the coffee or soda out of the cup. It doesn't have to be perfect. The cleaner it is, the better it is for the site. So it's not necessarily for DART when we pick it up. It is for Bronson, who has to keep that bagged and staged in an area. So when you have trash, you invite visitors, bugs and mice and who knows what else. So the cleaner, the better. Does not have to be perfect. Most recyclables are washed anyway, before they're processed. I can speak to foam. It is before it's melted down, it is washed, but that washing doesn't happen until it gets to our facility in Indianapolis. So the amount of time it sits at any given location is your risk factor. So cleaner, the better for everybody.
Yeah, and I can speak to the dirtiness of the process. We have some staff who put a half full cup of coffee in a collection area. And so as you can see by the picture that I showed, sometimes there's a little drainage of something off of our densified foam and things like that. And I think that's why, the densification process can be a little bit dirty, and it can be, we have to clean it off once a week, our machine. And so, yeah, I think there is some contamination that can happen, but it's much easier with like a cooler or something like that to have a lot less of that versus those food products. So, yeah, it can be a messy process.
Yeah, for food service products, the baling or the densifying is great because it goes into a plastic bag and it's, sealed up. We have recycling partners that put the bulk foam packaging and coolers into their baler, where, those are pretty clean. Most drop-off sites get clean product because people are hanging on to these at home. So they're going to household wash them. So they'll bring stacks of it. So it's pretty clean when you have a drop-off site. Bronson, because they collect it literally as people are walking out the door, they have a little bit of extra work to do, but.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting with our program is, it's mainly handled by our employees. And I was going to mention in my presentation, but because of the negative connotation of this expanded polystyrene products, our staff is very diligent on doing the right thing around these products. And so they take the extra step, their containers are by a sink or by a garbage to wipe them off or remove any product from it normally. So even though we have that, we still get a decent amount of contamination or the coffee here or there.
So we used to do a school lunch tray recycling program. I would say it was fairly robust. We don't even make school lunch trays, but we know the need for recycling. So high contamination factor in the schools. You can't teach a 6 or 7 year old, let alone a 16 or 17-year-old to wash a school lunch tray. So due to high significant contamination issues, we had to stop offering that program. So that's the cleaner, the better for everybody. And we don't want to start a program and then have to pull it just because, it seems silly for contamination, but again, I go back to we're a manufacturer and we can't bring that product to our manufacturing facilities for staging. That's not cool.
Libby, so Bronson uses a densifier. What's the advantage of using a densifier over just a compactor? Doesn't it heat it up and make it even smaller?
So the densification cycle is just a longer compaction cycle. So it doesn't melt it down like what Lou's system for foam cycle does. It just densifies it. So it compacts it and holds to get all of that air out, or as much of the air as you can. So a foam cup, in that picture that Brenden showed of the stack of the bags with the cylinders in it, one of those cylinders is about, I would say 8,500 foam cups in there. So, you can imagine that's a room full of product that's densified into that workable cylinder. So it's basically the length of the compaction cycle, but it's not melted. It's just compressed for a longer period of time.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that represents a lot of cups, a lot.
Yeah, and I thought I'd share this again. Obviously, you can see in these bags different levels of contamination. So it's not perfect, and I believe even when I've seen recycled product, there's different grades that come out of this, where you have your pure white grade, non-contaminated versus like you might see here, a little coffee contaminated. So and I know it's purchased based off of grades as well too. So yeah.
That speaks to a lot of other material recycling too, which I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail, but clear is preferred. Natural is preferred because you can start from scratch and do more things with it. There's with the dirty plastics, you're limited on the applications.
All right, thanks everybody. So let's get into our next question. What resources could you or your organization commit to a collaborative effort to establish expanded polystyrene recycling in the area or region? And if you could please answer all that apply, and this is all in the chat. So I'll copy that question again so you don't have to scroll up. And just write all of the letters that apply to you or your organization.
Yeah, and I think, while people are typing, this is something that we're already recycling at the hospital. We really want to get behind this project, and it's we're committing labor already. We have the space that we're using for this. I think there's a lot of resources that we already talked about on the panel, and I think other community resources are here as well, and we want to get a gauge on that so we can move forward as a group. So.
Absolutely. Hey, Brenden, could you talk a little bit more about the vision as a whole as well? Just so like, where might this program be housed? Is it going to be at Bronson? Is it going to be at a city location? Is it a drop-off program? Do we need a certain number of companies to be successful to make this happen?
Yeah, so, it could be housed anywhere. The interesting thing about this, I mean, with that foam cycle project, is one of the reasons why I like that product, and I think Libby likes it, is because, you're able to put it where outside or in different areas, in different spaces, and even move it around if need be. This could be one time held at Bronson, one time held over by Mayor's Riverfront Park. I think, we're flexible on how the partnership and how this project looks. We have space in a parking lot next to a power that would work for this project. But we'd also be happy to take our foam and bring it to a location as well. So, I think there's a lot of logistical things that have to happen. And, we're willing to kind of support it from any way we can.
That's great. So this is awesome. We're seeing quite a bit of participation interest here. Let's see. All right, so for participation, I won't go into too much depth on what these are, but Brenden, could you talk about a little bit, maybe like some follow-up materials, like if there will be like a program charter or maybe just like more description into like details into what each one of these what these resources could mean for each person, and like just some kind of follow-up materials if they'll be coming out?
Yeah, so I think our kind of follow-up to this is, because with this conversation, we want some action to come out of it. If it's getting a group together who are motivated and want to move this project forward. So, we don't want to just sit around here and talk, oh, this is what could happen. I want to see something happen from this. And so I think that's a further conversation as a group that we could sit down in a room or somewhere and kind of talk over some of those details. People who want to be involved, definitely reach out and we can figure out that. One of the things that I've suggested is, and I believe in past grants, nonprofit had to be involved of some sorts. And with selling of this material, there could be some small profit gain from it. As a hospital, this could go back to our children's hospital. This foam recycling could fund different products like that. I think we're open to different business models. We just want to see something come out of it in those future discussions.
I know that there's some other communities on the phone, call right now. Are there other programs or initiatives that other communities have that we might be able to learn from? Maybe how you set things up or how you're having companies participate? Would you be willing to share?
PD, this is Jeff from Cooper Township. And we've been recycling styrofoam now for over 20 years with DART. And we were one of the first, I think we were the first township in Kalamazoo County to go to the single stream recycling. And myself and a couple other board members didn't want to see the styrofoam go away. So ever since then, I think it's been about 12 or 14 years now, we've been having quarterly drop-offs, and we actually have the place to put it. And DART's been a great partner for this. And one of the things that DART has always told us is they like our stuff because it's good and clean. But I guess my point being is that if there's anybody, I've been doing it a long time, and if there's any way that I can help or serve on any committees to help push this along for more people doing this, I'm happy to be part of it. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jeff. We'll be putting you on that list.
So we're excited to keep moving forward with this. It looks like we have quite a bit of interest with individual volunteers, volunteers from your organization for specific projects. So keep sharing this word with your coworkers. Maybe this can be like a fun volunteer event that you guys do as a company. And then we also got quite a few responses for facilities for infrastructure. So potentially like host sites for collection and things like that. With that, do we have any, Rick, do you have a question?
Well, no, I'd just like to talk a little bit.
Yeah, please.
My name's Rick Welch. I'm the part of the volunteer army. And I got my first exposure to it out at Cooper Township. I'm a member of Hope for Creation. And so we supply some of the volunteer labor for the trailer. And I got a call from some people in Schoolcraft today to utilize our trailer. And I said, I gave them Libby's number to set up their own program down in Schoolcraft. So they'll be calling you tomorrow, Gal and Kathy. Anyway, one of the fears that I have with our trailer, I also want to tell you that that was a free gift from LC Howard Company, that it was a no longer a roadworthy trailer, and they gave it to us, and then we painted it up to make it look fun, and it is fun, and but it has limited space. So we filled it the last time. So what happens if we're in the middle of collection and it's full? That's my concern, particularly with Christmas coming up. So I'm so glad that Brendan's here. Maybe you have some space where we could truck some bags over to your facility for temporary storage or something. I don't know, but let's work out a collaborative deal. I've offered that to Jeff, and Jeff didn't seem very warm to that idea, but I can always get a truck to truck some bags around, but we have limited space. And then the other thing that I've seen, in that I don't know if you've seen our boxes that we use as a form for the big bags that DART gives us, which are very great. The fact that we have those bags to bag them in, I got those boxes from my wife's furniture retail store, and they use a lot of styrofoam. I pick up a big bag about every 2 weeks from them and take it to the trailer. I'm luckily a key holder. So when we started our last collection, we already had about a quarter of the trailer full. And that's from our interfaith groups. We have various congregations saving it, and then I'll collect it from them and put it in there. So we had at least 25 bags in there before we even started the collection. So it's
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, this is exactly why densification matters and why the compactor is such a critical piece. A trailer, a 53-foot trailer, will hold about 1,500 pounds of loose foam, whether it's cups or packaging or coolers. If it was densified, that same trailer could hold 30,000 pounds. So it is significant. So people will hear me talk about densification in the granting program through FPI to get machines to help you bale it or compact it, whatever. That's why, because with the driver shortage, I'm not joking when I say we have one guy, one person to go collect all of this. And when we get the calls for overflow, sadly, you can't store foam outside, because if it gets wet, we can't take it when it's waterlogged. So the densification, compaction is a critical piece, or you have to have a space to stage those bags within a dock area. So yeah, Rick, you totally made the case for densification right there, because it happens quickly. and there's so much material. So this is why there's collaboration that is needed.
So Brenden, you have a densifier or whatever you call it?
We do, and I've shown a couple pictures. It's mainly meant for cups. I mean, you can break down some of the foam and densify items, but it does clog up if it's large items as well. As a hospital,
a lot of large items, and I'm seeing that the untapped market for recycling is the commercial market. Just in looking at what comes into my wife's store, I mean, she gets big pieces. I don't think your densifier would like those, but
yeah,
we'll see.
exactly. And they would have to be broken up, and we get these super dense coolers that someone can't just rip in half or something as well. So it's difficult. It's a difficult product to manage, and if we were to put this in our compactor or put it in our trash would fill up double time. It's a good service for our hospital and our community. It's very a lot of product.
Yeah.
Brenden,
So
Sorry.
go ahead, Petey. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just saying, just one thing on the coolers from Pfizer. I mentioned to them that we were going to have this discussion. I know they're going to try to hop on. I don't think they're on right now, but they are. Pipe in, please. But they said that they take those back. That you can send those coolers back. I don't know what. That's all I know that they said.
Yeah. So and those programs are great. Those are great, but a lot of times it's difficult to send postage back. And from an environmental standpoint too, it's like that is the lightest thing around. I mean, to put postage back on it again to send it. I know we do send some specimens and move things around in some of the coolers, but for the most part, they're difficult to get back to a manufacturer.
I think this is where maybe future conversations, we pull our good friend Lou from Foam Cycle in, because his program is designed more for that really tough, heavy duty foam. The machine that Bronson has is an auger that just kind of spins and pushes, and it is designed for food service packaging. It's not designed for that heavy duty material. So it can do it sometimes, but just the sheer volume of what Bronson has makes it almost unmaintainable. You should have showed, Brenden, you should have showed the pictures of the chain link gate with all of this stuff. It's awesome. It's fun. So maybe future conversation, we pull Lou in. And
I know Lou's on the call. Would Lou like to jump in?
Do you mind if I say hello?
We'd love to hear that.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm biting because like Libby, who's a friend of mine, and I could talk foam, believe me, for my own webinar, and I've done it in different states. So just real quickly, great state of Michigan. You folks have more manufacturers of foam than any state in the country. I am participating in the Next Cycle program. I am a member of the Michigan Recycling Coalition. I just came back from Bay City for a few days there at that event. Yeah, I have the pleasure of working with Libby on projects throughout the country. She represents, DART does, a good amount of funding to the Foam Recycling Coalition. And through their grant process, I put my systems in a couple of states in Florida, Kentucky. I just got back from Colorado. Colorado's system went as far as part of a Next Cycle program in that state, prior to Michigan starting this Next Cycle program. So without being, I don't want to get too much involved in my system, but I'd just like to say that you're all great folks, and DART and what Libby's doing is very unique in Michigan. Imagine a world where DART sells to some big conglomerate one day and says, I am losing money on every trailer I put out, and doesn't become that good partner company like they are because they're in Michigan. Imagine every site without one of their trailers. And that can happen because, to be honest with you, they lose money on every trailer they put out. No one wants to truck foam as light as it is, less than a couple of 1,000 pounds in that trailer, if you're lucky, anywhere but around the corner. So you got a great partner with Libby, but at the end of the day, you have to get to something that's sustainable. I built my system out of a need for innovation with respect to on-site densification and marketing of the material that goes beyond the dart. You've now got a commodity that could be sold and an impact in a community that could be pretty substantial. So, and just the other thing I want to say is, you know, what Brenden is doing with food service foam, because food service foam is a thicker material than packaging foam, which is your coolers and your furniture and your TV packaging, that's 98% air. The food service foam has very little air to it. So you can densify food service foam by mere compression. Packaging foam, the air has to be removed, and that's what my system does. So we remove it 90-to-1 in densification by getting the air out of it. Once you get the air out of it, I have pure polystyrene plastic, and we're using that to make the picture frames here in New Jersey as part of the closed loop process, which we hope to bring to Michigan. I got a picture frame manufacturer all lined up, and we're hopefully, I need that first house community site. So Kalamazoo, come on, let's talk. We put a system there. It's not going to cost you anything, and we'll, you know, really get this everybody excited about the program. So, but thank you for having me, and appreciate the opportunity to say hello. I'm muting myself now.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
I can't say enough about collaboration. It just, you know, like I'll say, hey to Allie, we're competitors in the marketplace, but we're complete allies in sustainability and recycling. So this isn't we're doing this and they're doing that, or who's not doing what. It's how can we take our resources and come together to make this happen. And Pactiv is a great example of a partner in collaboration on this. So I'm glad you're here, Allie.
Thanks, you too. Yeah, absolutely. Like I'd like to echo that with like these industry-wide organizations. Libby referenced the Food Service Packaging Institute. So Pactiv Evergreen, Fabrical, we all are really big funders to these different groups like the Paper Recovery, PRP, and PRG or PRA. And like, so paper, I'm trying to remember like the acronym to remember like how to say it properly. So it's like Paper Recovery Alliance, plastics recovery groups, like Libby had noted earlier, there's a foam recycling coalition, and we all want to see these materials recycled, and we're willing to put a lot of time and money into this. And so it really takes partnerships and collaboration across the entire industry to make this happen.
Speaking of, any other comments? Anybody want to share anything else? And then I'm just going to kind of talk about where we go from here.
I have one more quality question. So when we're receiving it as volunteers, the different products, we're always confused. I'm relatively new, but confused about the stuff that seems squishy, but a friend of mine told me if you bend it and it breaks, it's acceptable. So let's have the DART experts confer on that.
It's easier to, I mean, I have the images that I can share again of what isn't acceptable. It's really a short list. It's the blue or pink styrofoam. So like that's not styrofoam. So whenever you say styrofoam, if I look confused for a minute, it's because I'm trying to figure out if you're actually talking about styrofoam or EPS in general.
EPS, I'm talking about
Okay,
EPS.
so you cannot recycle the pink or blue sheeting insulation. The thin like wrap plastic that is foamed, it's not a polystyrene, so we cannot accept that. And then there's a certain grade of meat tray. So when we say, yeah, we take meat trays, it would be the inexpensive black, yellow, pink, white standard food tray. Some of the, like if you were to get Angus beef, it might be on a different type of food tray that's a little glossier. We don't take those. So it just has to be straight up basic expanded polystyrene. But we can take black or yellow or pink, that just not the styrofoam.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Or did I?
Yes.
Yep. And actually,
Well,
if you send some good info, some images or some links to images that we'll include that in this email, and that should have a lot of this information in it.
Yeah, I have something that will kind of show you what products are made from recycled polystyrene too. So that's kind of much prettier to look at than the yes and no's, but I'll send all 3 of those pieces for you.
That would be fabulous. So it seems like
Yeah,
we
and-
still have a lot of people on the line here, and which is great. So I think there's a lot of interest here. And so, you know, as we're wrapping up, and before I give you guys a last chance to make one comment, I think that as far as continue to move this along, maybe we should set up a couple of focus groups where we can get people to get together and have a deeper conversation, and invite people to the table. When we send out the email afterwards, again, it's going to have some questions about what are you going to, some of these same things. What are you willing to do, and how committed are you? And we'll take those people who respond and say, yes, I'm interested. And we're going to set up a meeting to go ahead and say what happens next. And it's great if we have Jeff Cooper and some of the other, or Jeff Sorensen from Cooper Township and some of the other groups that we can talk to. Maybe it's as simple as a route, as opposed to once every 2 weeks. It's kind of a route that goes through, and we can kind of build something that's a little easier to use. But as Libby keeps talking about collaboration, you know, there's so much interest behind this, and nobody knows how to tackle it. And so if we can put a plan together, I think it's something we can really move the ball on. Any comments from our amazing presenters today who brought so much interest to us?
I mean, the one last thing that I have to say is, you know, I'm happy to, obviously with COVID, access to the hospital is a little less, and why we can't have it on site, this meeting on site at our facility. But I'm happy to show single people our densifier, you know, our space. And even I have a bunch of examples of what this gets turned into. So I'm happy to, you know, share those or give a little bit of a tour, but yeah, answer any questions and anything like that as well. So thanks, everyone.
Brenda, would you be willing to possibly host this first kind of kickoff meeting? That might be a great location to find a way to do that. It probably wouldn't be that many people.
Yeah, as long as we open up for meetings, I'll be happy to do that.
Great. And James Wilson, I don't know if you had your hand up because you were cheering or because you had a question or a comment.
Oh, I kind of had a question, just in timing wise, it just didn't work out. But yeah, I was wondering, I guess it's more for Libby, with regards to returning the recycled styrofoam like back into use. Is there a certain number of times that, like, as long as it's not contaminated, it's able to be used, or can it be continuously reused?
I would not say it's infinitely reusable. I think it depends on the process. It depends on the contamination factor. It depends on the application. I would probably defer that to one of the manufacturers of, say, the picture frames, for example, that Lou might be able to speak to that a little more clearly, but it's not an infinitely recyclable material, and it depends. I mean, yeah.
That's okay. I was just really curious on to how that works and how well it can be used.
Yeah, it depends. The joy of recycling, right? I mean, it
Absolutely.
can in very specific instances, you know, but you know, maybe the role of chemical recycling lengthens that. So that's a whole other aspect to consider too, mechanical versus advanced recycling. So taking it back to that monomer state and just starting from scratch. So
awesome. As we wrap up, I would love everybody, if you are interested in pursuing this and being part of this future of this particular topic, all of you who have your pictures off, you might have to turn your cameras on for a second. But if you'll just put your camera on and just do a thumbs up if you are interested in pursuing this and think that there's something to go beyond this. Let's see, here we go. Oh, look at all those thumbs. I love all those faces with the big bright thumbs. Look at that. Even the ones that are coming on. Thank you, Justin. So, so it sounds like there's a lot of effort behind this. And so very excited to see, oh, actually you can put your thumb up without your picture. So there you go. There's a few more. So thank you all so much for being part of this. Is there any last comments? I'm saying it one more time. Any last comment? All right, we will be sending out that information in the next day or two with all this information, if I can grab it together. And at the same time, we'll go ahead and put a date on the calendar. Because we've got the momentum going. Let's make sure it keeps going, and we'll make this happen. So thank you all for your commitment to making our community sustainable and all the work that you're doing to make our community great. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.